Vertical angles are basically non-adjacent angles, so angles that are not right next to each other, formed by intersecting lines. So here I have two lines intersecting one another. All right. And the thing that I want to identify is the vertical angles. The vertical angles are the ones that aren't next to each other. And so when I look at this, I kind of have a color coordinated, but angle 1 is angle 1 is adjacent to angle 3 and angle 4. Okay. So angle 1 and 3 are adjacent. Angle 1 and 4 are adjacent angles. They're touching each other. And so as these lines cross, I'm looking for the angles that are not adjacent to one another. So that would be this guy over here. Okay? And we almost think of it as the angles that are across from one another when the lines cross. Okay? So when these two lines intersect, the angles that are across from one another, those are the vertical angles. Okay? And so when we look at this, the vertical angles here, angle 1 is actually congruent. If you look at my note that's underneath this, vertical angles are congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Those angles are the same because they're vertical angles. Those are my vertical angles. And so I have another pair of vertical angles here. If I look at something like angle 3, well, angle 3, if I look at this, angle 3 is touching angles 1 and 2, so angle 3 is adjacent to 1, angle 3 is adjacent to 2. The angle that it's not adjacent to, the angle that it's not sharing a side with, that it's not right up against, is angle 3. And so again, we think of it as the angles that are across from one another. So angle 3 and 4 are across from one another. Those are vertical angles, which means angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. Okay? And so that idea of identifying vertical angles is pretty helpful because they're congruent. Right away, we can identify two angles that are the same. Okay? So whenever two lines cross, the angles that are across from one another, okay, that are not right next to each other, that are not adjacent, those are vertical angles, and those vertical angles are congruent. Okay?